power doesn't just corrupt, sometimes it turns into a full-blown waking nightmare for everyone within arm's reach. While most leaders want to be loved, a select few throughout history decided that absolute terror was a much more efficient way to keep the throne. From emperors who declared war on the ocean to dictators who saw spies in every shadow, we're looking at the 15 historical leaders most feared by their own people, or as their subjects would say, their least favorite list. 1. Caligula. Ruling Rome from 37 to 41 AD, Caligula started out fine, but a near-death illness apparently broke his brain. He began claiming he was a living god.
And therefore I am a god.
Opened a brothel in the imperial palace and reportedly planned to make his horse a consul. He was a sadistic torturer who ordered the execution of allies, rivals, and innocent people, and delighted in feeding criminals to wild beasts. Returning to his even more crazy side, he once ordered his army to march to the shore and attack the ocean, forcing them to gather seashells as spoils of war. When your boss starts declaring war on Poseidon, you know your job security is officially at zero. 2. Ivan the Terrible. Ivan was the first Tsar of all Russia, and he earned his nickname through a reign of paranoia and extreme violence from 1533 to 1584. He created the Oprichniki, a paramilitary force that acted as bodyguards, secret police, and enforcers. Known for their extreme brutality, they terrorized, tortured, and executed perceived enemies. As if that was not bad enough, they dressed in black and rode horses with severed dog heads attached to their saddles to symbolize biting enemies. In a fit of rage, he even killed his own son and heir. He was so feared that when he died, the entire country entered a period of chaos because nobody was left who hadn't been traumatized by his presence. 3. Joseph Stalin. Stalin turned paranoia into a national policy from 1922 to 1953. His policies caused the deaths of between 10 and over 20 million people, with some estimates ranging even higher. This included his own top generals and closest advisors. He created the Gulag system, a network of forced labor camps where prisoners were subjected to starvation while working on state projects. He was so terrifying that when he suffered a stroke in his final days, his guards were reportedly too scared to enter his room to help him for hours. If your employees are too scared to save your life, you might have been a bit too strict on the office policies. 4. Vlad the Impaler. The real-life inspiration for Dracula, Vlad III ruled Wallachia in 1448 from 1456 to 1462 and again 1476, but always with a preference for psychological warfare that would make a modern horror movie director faint. His favorite method of execution was impalement, creating vast forests of victims around his castle to deter invaders. However, he was just as brutal to his own people, once inviting the poor and sick to a great feast and then burning down the hall with them inside to cleanse the land. He was a man who took the concept of a hostile work environment to a whole new level.
5. Elizabeth Bathory. Though not a national leader, as a high-ranking noblewoman in Hungary, she held absolute power over her subjects. Legend says that from 1585 to 1610, she tortured and killed hundreds of young girls, believing that bathing in their blood would keep her young. While some historians argue she was framed by political enemies, the sheer terror her name inspired in the local peasantry lasted for centuries. It turns out that skincare routine is a very dangerous phrase when Elizabeth Bathory is involved. 6. Commodus. In 180 AD, after the peaceful reign of his father Marcus Aurelius, Commodus decided that being an emperor was boring and being a gladiator was way cooler. He would frequently step into the arena to fight, though his opponents were usually given blunt weapons while he used a sharpened sword. He also charged the city of Rome a massive fee for every appearance he made. He renamed the months of the year after his own titles and believed he was the reincarnation of Hercules. Rome eventually decided that one Hercules was more than enough. 7. Shaka Zulu. Shaka was a brilliant military reformer who ruled the Zulu kingdom from 1816 to 1828, but his discipline was brutal. He once executed several of his own soldiers simply because they showed signs of squinting during a drill. When his mother died, his grief turned into a literal massacre. He ordered that no crops be planted for a year, no milk be consumed, and executed any woman found pregnant, along with their husbands. Thousands of his own people were killed during this period of forced mourning, proving that some leaders' grief is a luxury their subjects cannot afford.
8. Timur, also known as Tamerlane. Seeking to restore the Mongol Empire to its former glory, from 1370 to 1405, Timur was responsible for the deaths of an estimated 17 million people, which was roughly 5% of the world's population at the time. He was famous for building towers out of the skulls of his enemies, but he was equally ruthless with his own subjects if they showed a hint of rebellion. In the city of Isfahan, in what is now central Iran, after a tax revolt, he reportedly ordered each of his soldiers to bring him a specific number of heads from the local population. He was a conqueror who didn't just want your land, he wanted to make sure no one was left to complain about the new management. 9. Maximilien Robespierre. The architect of the French Revolution's reign of terror didn't wear a crown, but from September 1793 to July 1794, he held more power than most kings. He believed that virtue could only be achieved through terror. Under his leadership, thousands of French citizens were sent to the guillotine for being enemies of the revolution, often based on nothing more than a neighbor's suspicion. Eventually, the revolution did what it does best and turned on him, proving that if you live by the blade, you usually end up losing your head to it. 10. Idi Amin. As the dictator of Uganda in the 1970s, Amin's rule was characterized by erratic behavior and extreme violence. He gave himself grand titles, including Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea. Behind the bizarre titles was a body count estimated at 300,000. He was known for keeping the heads of his political enemies in his freezer and supposedly fed others to crocodiles. He was a leader who made sure that having the boss over for dinner was a life-threatening prospect. 11. Ibrahim the Mad. An Ottoman sultan who spent the first 20 years of his life locked in a windowless cage, Ibrahim was not exactly prepared for leadership. His reign of the Ottoman Empire from 1640 to 1648 was marked by obsession and cruelty. In his most infamous act, he reportedly heard a rumor that one of his concubines had been unfaithful. Unable to figure out which one, he ordered his guards to tie all 280 women of his harem into weighted sacks and throw them into the Bosphorus River. When you can't solve a mystery, delete all is a very dark solution. 12. Qin Shi Huang. From 221 to 210 BC, the first emperor of a unified China gave the world the Great Wall and the Terracotta Army, but he also gave them a reign of absolute fear. He was obsessed with immortality and buried hundreds of scholars alive for failing to find him an elixir of life. He burned all books that didn't agree with his philosophy and forced hundreds of thousands of his subjects into slave labor to build his massive tomb. He wanted to live forever, but his people were likely just hoping his reign wouldn't. 13. Mary I of England. Better known as Bloody Mary, she earned her name by attempting to reverse the English Reformation through fire. In just 5 years, from 1553 to 1558, she ordered nearly 300 religious dissenters to be burned at the stake. She was so convinced of her divine mission that she saw any opposition as a sin punishable by death. While her reign was short, the smell of smoke she left behind ensured her name would be whispered with fear for generations. 14. Ranavalona I. Known as the Mad Queen of Madagascar, she ruled for 33 years from 1828 to 1861 with a fierce desire to keep foreign influence out of her country. She used trial by ordeal involving a poison called tongana. The accused had to eat 3 pieces of chicken skin and then vomit them back up to prove innocence. Under her rule, the population of Madagascar was nearly cut in half due to war, disease, and her brutal justice system. She was the ultimate Iron Lady, but the iron was usually red hot. 15. Pol Pot. From 1975 to 1979, as the leader of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, Pol Pot attempted to reset society to year zero. He abolished money, schools, and religion, and forced the entire urban population into rural labor camps. He targeted anyone considered an intellectual, which at one point included anyone who wore glasses or spoke a foreign language. Nearly a quarter of the country's population died in the killing fields. It was a reign of terror so absolute that the only thing more dangerous than being an enemy of the state was being a citizen of it. History shows that the tallest thrones often cast the longest shadows. These leaders didn't just rule their people, they haunted them, proving that a crown is a very heavy thing when it's made of iron and soaked in blood. The next time you think your boss is a nightmare, just be glad they aren't declaring war on the ocean or checking your freezer. See you next time, and remember, curiosity is recommended, but keeping your head is highly encouraged.